you're only 3 minutes from possible death times.
I mean, nobody can get to them in the wintertime.
Don't stick it deeper in the vein. Don't do that.
They told us it would be harder to get us from the South Pole than it would be to get us off a space station.
She was just so weak. I mean, she was a cancer patient.
You really have that one chance to get in, and if you miss, you're probably not going to see the pole again.
All of a sudden, pilot load, we've got a problem.
Walt, stop, Walt, no.
I, quite frankly, never expected to see her again.
From the Weather Channel, this is Storm Stories with meteorologist Jim Cantori.
February 1999. The Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station. This is the place where south runs out. There's nothing but north from here.
I knew nothing about the South Pole, but I liked the adventure, the fact that it would totally change my life and my perspective.
Barbarian woman.
Dr. Jerri Nielsen is the only physician at the station.
I'm just right here with Bob.
The 46-year-old ER doctor from Ohio arrived in November to take care of the eclectic group of people called polies.
Most of them are MacGyver types. They're people who are self-selected to live in a place like the South Pole.
John's trying to cure a frostbite the old-fashioned way.
See if it works or not, if I have to go see the doc.
The polies are mostly scientists, here to study both climate and astronomy. They're a close-knit group, partly because the living quarters are so small, but also because the danger they face every day is mind-blowing. In summertime, the average temperature is 20 degrees below zero, and the sun never sets. Then in February, as the seasons change, the sun starts a slow crawl toward the horizon. For 5 months, there is no light, as temperatures plummet to 60, 70, and then 80 below.
We say, you know, you're only 3 minutes from possible death, to try to remind us, because you started becoming quite cavalier.
5 minutes?
In such extreme temperatures, jet fuel gels, so aircraft can't take off or land. That means every year from mid-February through October, the pole is cut off from the rest of the world. This year, the final plane takes off on February 15th. Only 41 polies stay behind. Jerri is one of them.
Aircraft is on deck. There we go.
This is the last plane out.
Together, meteorologist Lori Galpin and Jerri watch the last plane disappear.
There is something thrilling about that idea that you are going to be cut off. There's the element of danger.
Communication specialist Tom Carlson is thrilled as well. But the 46-year-old first-time polie can't help thinking the moment is a bit eerie.
We all go out and wave off the last plane, and it's a pretty emotional moment because now we know this is it. We're on our own.
A lot of people feel great emotion at that point because finally the winter is going to happen. You just think, ooh, I'm really here for a long time.
For Jerri, that long time is about to feel much longer. March 1999.
About 2 weeks after the last plane left, I was thinking about a medical problem of one of the other polies. So I was reading my medical book, and I was scratching myself, and I felt a lump in my breast. Now, I'd had a mammogram before I left, but there it was, big mass in my breast. No, I wanted an adventure. I wanted to be placed in a place where there was no way out. Well, now there was no way out. I immediately thought that I was going to die. I never questioned it, just assumed that I'd gambled and lost.
All right, rotor. Field light on.
For 3 months, Jerri continues her normal routine. She tells no one about the lump, thinking there is nothing to be done and fearing she'll cause her friends to panic. But then, her condition gets worse.
I found big lumps underneath my arm, and I was developing chest pain, really bad pain in my breast. At this point, I thought, maybe I'll die before I get off the ice. I better tell someone.
It was in late June. On Saturdays, we always had a town hall meeting. And at that time, the news was given out that Jerri had discovered a lump in her breast and that it very well might be cancerous. I tell you, a hush fell over that room, a silence you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, this just came out of left field for everybody.
People go to the station with the mindset that if there's a tragedy that happens, we will be equipped mentally, psychologically, emotionally, physically to deal with the situation. In this case, here's a situation that we weren't really equipped for.
I talked with some colonel up in Christchurch last night, and I gave him my suggestion.
Within hours, the station commander is working on a plan to get help. The police will do whatever is necessary to try to save Jerri's life.
2 slides of the large mass?
Yes.
Okay.
First step is figuring out whether she does have cancer. With help from the station's welder, who has a medic's background, Jerri performs a painful biopsy on herself.
I had to put ice on me so that I did not have so much pain. I did use a little bit of xylocaine. We couldn't give me anything that might affect my ability to think.
But after 20 attempts, nothing. The slides made from the breast tissue are unreadable.
The system then was quite antiquated, but of course, you can't have the kind of a hospital that you would have in a major city.
Is there anybody who hasn't heard yet that we're having an airdrop?
Given the research center's isolation, Jerri's only hope is an airdrop of more sophisticated diagnostic equipment, as well as chemotherapy drugs. This will require a dangerous midwinter flight.
There was a great deal of work to do.
The main priority for this drop is for medical reasons.
They had to get the skiway ready so that we could pick up the packages.
No matter what the temperature is, we will run on this.
They had to make incredible plans to make this thing happen.
While the people at the pole prepare for the drop, in New Zealand, the pilots and crew who will fly the mission get ready. Pilot Greg Pike knows it will be the most difficult flight of his career.
The folks down there that winter over on the South Pole, it's almost as if they could be on the moon. I mean, nobody can get to them in the wintertime.
It is such a dangerous mission for the pilots to do themselves. If they crash or something goes wrong, there's no one to rescue them.
On July 11th, winds are low. Temperatures at the South Pole hover at 86 below zero. The weather is brutal, but good enough for the airdrop. Pike and his team take off from New Zealand and fly into the continuous night of the South Pole winter. The destination? A C-shaped drop zone at the research station, outlined by flaming barrels filled with wood and jet fuel. Wearing night vision goggles, Pike tries to find the markers.
We're 5 minutes out, and we're talking to the folks out there. They said everything's lit. We still don't see anything. And again, the tension started rising. I go, are we going to be able to find this place? Are we going to the right direction?
A cloud bank is settled just above the South Pole, obstructing Pike's view of the ground. He tries to fly using only the instruments, but he can't be sure they're accurate. They could be affected by the ice.
I felt that real sense of urgency, and this was my first indication where, hey, I don't know if we're going to find this place.
Pike needs to see the ground in order to align his flight path and stabilize the aircraft. Only then can the navigator time the drop.
2 minutes out, we came out of the clouds. All of a sudden, we pick up the lights on the drop zone.
The crew in back springs into action. The loadmasters open the doors, letting in the howling wind. The crew has written messages on the boxes, wishing the doctor luck. They have 15 seconds to push the boxes out before the drop zone is out of range.
We go across, the navigator calls green light. We hear this noise in the back, and the loads go load clear. And so that's the message that the first bundles went out.
Pike circles around for a second drop. The packages are equipped with strobe lights so the police on the ground can find them. But the lights last only seconds before the batteries freeze. The crew makes the second pass, dropping chemotherapy drugs, an advanced microscope and slide staining material, along with some fresh fruit and vegetables.
Everyone felt like we had been visited by aliens or something of the sort.
I could actually see the plane swooping in low and see the guys in the doorway pushing these pallets out of the door. It was really pretty spectacular.
Then, as Pike attempts to head home, he gets a message from the loadmasters in the back.
Pilot, load, we've got a problem. One of our platforms won't come in. And it's just like, oh no, this is our worst case scenario.
July 11th, 1999. An Air Force cargo plane is attempting to return to New Zealand after dropping emergency medical supplies to a research station at the South Pole. The supplies are for Jerri Nielsen, the station's doctor, who believes she has breast cancer. But the plane's pilots have a problem of their own. One of the back doors will not close. If they don't fix it, wind drag will prevent the plane from getting back to New Zealand. The crew will need to make an emergency run to Argentina instead. The wind chill outside is 170 below, but the loadmasters continue to work on the door. Minutes crawl by as pilot Greg Pike tries to keep the aircraft steady.
All of a sudden, I can hear the door close in the back, and the load says, hey, we've got it fixed, problem clear, and then then you can hear the folks in the back just yelling. It's total satisfaction. Job satisfaction at its highest.
Down below, the police use the new medical supplies to prepare slides of breast tissue from Jerri's biopsy. A computer technician works for a month to clean up the images.
She finally got the slides good enough and was able to transmit by email a picture of my cells to a pathologist in the United States.
On July 23rd, Jerri's fears are confirmed.
From the first biopsy result, they could tell that I had an aggressive form of breast cancer. I felt like I was kicked in the stomach by a horse.
And then we run the Benadryl and the Zantac through this one.
Jerri and her friends now have to learn a new skill: administering the chemotherapy drugs that came with the airdrop. The treatment is even more difficult because they don't have a pump to control the pace of the IV drip.
Usually, you have to be very careful how fast you give chemotherapy because it can do terrible things to the body.
Walt, move it.
I'm moving it right now.
It's stopping.
It can cause terrible infections or reactions.
It's stopping.
You could have an allergic reaction that might kill you.
Walt,
Walt,
it's stopping.
stop, Walt, no. Don't do that, Walt.
It stopped. It stopped.
Well, it stopped. I need to move it.
It stopped.
Yep, now it's going again.
There it goes, that's good.
I was never afraid of their abilities because I'd seen these people do amazing, remarkable things already. I found it comforting to have all those people in my room with me and make it an event. It made me feel very good to have them care so much about me.
For weeks, the treatment continues, and Jerri tries to live as though nothing is wrong.
And I believed that I would make the last year of my life the best year. That's how I kept going. And also, I had a responsibility. I was just the only doctor, so I still had to work every day. And that kept me going also.
But when the first course of chemo stops working, Nielsen has to try another, and the side effects are overwhelming.
I became extremely tired, and I likened walking to making my way through Jell-O at waist deep.
We were sitting in the lunchroom, and Jerri had this gorgeous, thick, long blonde hair. And just within weeks, it just started falling out and just looked so thin and ragged.
I didn't like losing my hair at all. And when I saw myself in a mirror, I remembered I was a sick person. I wasn't the invincible person that was inside of me.
Can you say stop the madness?
Stop the madness.
Over here.
She did her best. I mean, she continued to be a doctor, and she continued to perform her duties and responsibilities. But it was clear, you know, the writing was on the wall that this was not a good thing, and it was only going to get worse.
It becomes clear that the attempt to treat Jerri's cancer is failing.
I became dizzy. I fell into walls. I fell into a stove and was badly burned.
That ultimately led to the decision to go with the rescue attempt.
The plan is to send a ski-equipped plane down to the pole to get Jerri out. But it can't happen right away. Conditions are too severe. In extreme cold, jet fuel gels and hydraulic lines leak and burst. 50 below is the absolute limit for landing a plane.
And even at that temperature, it still is a big chance. There's no guarantee, you know, but that was sort of the window there.
October 13th, a New York Air National Guard crew stands ready at the McMurdo Station on the coast of Antarctica. The temperature at the South Pole is 64 degrees below, still too cold for a landing. The only hope is for cloud cover to develop to warm things up. For 3 days, the pilots wait.
I think the foreboding feeling was you really have that one chance to get in, and if you miss, you're probably not going to see the pole again.
So we were waiting on pins and needles for a long time, watching the temperature, doing the predictions, trying to figure out when is some kind of a front going to come through here that's going to warm it up to the point where we can actually make this happen.
Finally, on October 16th, 1999, temperatures reach an acceptable range.
Okay, 96 is a 9:30 takeoff for pole. 96, 9:30 takeoff.
Copy all.
Here's the next step of the mission. Really excited about getting going. About 6.5 hours, we should be back here with our patient and ready to take her north.
In the early hours of the morning, pilots George McAllister, Dave Coulterman, and their crew start the journey. But as the plane gets close to the pole, a blizzard blows in.
The plane came, the plane circled around, and right when the plane is getting ready to land, this big blow comes in and just obliterates all visibility. I mean, it was just like out of a book. We just couldn't believe it.
It was like a whiteout, and we knew that they would abandon the mission.
McAllister and Coulterman struggle to see the runway, but visibility is almost zero.
We rate that from good, fair, poor, and nil. And at that point, we had a poor surface definition and a nil horizon.
We didn't know what was happening. They had done radio silence. They were so tense. I mean, I was talking to them, and they said, we're going for it, you know, and that's the last I heard from those guys.
October 16th, 1999, the South Pole. A New York Air National Guard crew is trying to land a ski plane in minus 50-degree weather and blizzard conditions. The mission? To rescue Dr. Jerri Nielsen, who's suffering from an aggressive form of breast cancer. As Jerri waits on a snowmobile with her friend and co-worker John Penny, she fears the weather will make landing impossible.
Big John took me out to where we would wait for the plane. He said, you know they're not coming. They can't come. And then we heard boom. And we were, what is that? And we realized, my gosh, a plane has landed right beside us.
Pilots George McAllister and Dave Coulterman are almost as surprised as Jerri.
We just kind of took a deep breath and erupted in this huge, you know, screaming. We did it, you know, we're high-fiving each other.
Everybody was cheering and whooping and hollering, and Big John took her over his shoulder and literally threw her in the plane, and they were off. I mean, they were in and out of there in 5 minutes probably.
It was sad to get on that plane, but I was filled with hope when I realized that now I might make it, I may survive.
We got the airplane into the air, and at that moment, in the heavy overcast skies, a ray of blue sky opened up and shined down onto the skiway, and at that point, we were a pretty happy crew.
It was very, very emotional, you know. I'll never forget that, because I, quite frankly, never expected to see her again.
We got you fruit, we got you salads.
Less than 24 hours later, Jerri is with her brothers at a hotel in New Zealand, awaiting a flight back to the States. She talks to her dad for the first time in months.
Hi, Daddy. I'm with the boys. Oh, I'm so happy to see them, and they brought me fruit and vegetables.
The heroic efforts to save her have not been in vain. Tests reveal the cancer has not had time to spread. She will eventually require a mastectomy, but the cancer will go into remission. As Jerri looks back on that harrowing time at the end of the earth, she has no regrets. She knows now how valuable life is and how much she wants to live it.
It doesn't really matter what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you that matters. And even bad things can end up being glorious. It's your choice.
How thick is the Antarctic ice sheet, and what would happen if it melted? The answer when Storm Stories continues. How thick is the Antarctic ice sheet, and what would happen if it melted? 98% of Antarctica is covered by an ice sheet that averages about 7,200 feet in thickness. That makes up 90% of the planet's ice and 70% of all the fresh water in the world. If the entire ice cap were to melt, sea level would rise by 230 feet. To put that into perspective, every inch the sea level rises has the potential to erode 8 feet of shoreline. That means cities like New York, London, and Hong Kong would be completely underwater. For Storm Stories, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori. Your local forecast is next.
This is the worst storm in the history of the